Good morning! This is Nathaniel Swanson again, bringing you a speech from the field, rather than the luxury of my study area at home. If you'll pardon the slightly shaky camera, I'd like to inform you about a topic called Christian Eschatology. I'd like to start off by saying that I have been studying this subject off and on throughout my almost 20 years as a believer in Jesus Christ and the message of His Word to us, the Holy Bible. Now, I haven't been to seminary or been ordained as a minister or anything like that. However, what I do have is a hunger and thirst for spiritual food, i.e., good, sound Christian doctrine. Furthermore, I am known with my family for always taking copious notes, as you may have noticed from my perhaps overly thorough discussion board topics. And so, I have taken good notes during both the guest speakers' orations on this topic, as well as during our pastors' regular discourses on the subject of the end times when they naturally come up in our verse-by-verse, chapter-by-chapter study of the Bible. Lastly, and you'll understand why I say this as we get into the meat of the topic, I am capable, as I believe we all can be, of discerning the things around us as they might relate to eschatology. That last part isn't particularly difficult, it just requires an open mind and the ability to shun the ugly connotations associated with trite phrases like the end of the world, or New World Order, or conspiracy theorists, or any of those kinds of phrases that deal with the end of all things. I neither seek to prove nor disprove any of these things. Instead, I look only to understand that which is around me and see the potential for both divine intervention and interwoven potential fulfillment of biblical prophecies in the past, present, and future. So, what is eschatology? According to dictionary.com, it is a word coined around 1835 to 1845, and it's derived from two Greek words that mean study and last. So Christian eschatology is the study of end times as it relates to the prophetical ends of the world, as described in the Bible. The Bible itself has descriptions of the end of this age found all throughout its pages, such as in the books of Numbers, Ezekiel, Jeremiah, Zephaniah, Matthew, Luke, 1st and 2nd Timothy, and of course, some of the most famous of all in the books of Daniel and Revelation. I will touch on some of these shortly. However, if you're truly interested in the subject, I would wholeheartedly recommend developing your own hunger and thirst for this particular knowledge, such that you don't take my word for it, but instead read and test the things that I say to see that they are true. ContenderMinistries.org has an excellent breakdown of some of the main points of biblical eschatology. Part of my study today will be a summary of some of their finer points. So let's get into the real meat. Matthew 24, verse 6 through 7 reads, "And you will be hearing of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not frightened, for these things must take place, but that is not yet the end. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and in various places there will be famines and earthquakes." War itself is nothing new. Kingdoms went to war back in ancient Bible times too. However, one of the points brought up by Contender Ministries is that more people have been killed in warfare and terrorism in this century than at any other time in history. Additionally, instant media coverage and the availability of a multitude of 24-hour news services have given most of the world the ability to hear of these wars and of these rumors of wars. Matthew 24:7 also mentions famines. Food shortage throughout the world has been a topic shown off and on in the news since before I was born. The U.S. is constantly delivering food aid to starving countries, and I'm sure we're not the only ones. This is common knowledge to anyone that watches the news, but that's only the beginning. Another example given at Contender Ministries is how farmers are driven out of Zimbabwe in increasing numbers. Farmers that once supplied their areas with good, nutritious food. In their place, foreigners are taking their land and replacing life-sustaining crops with poppies that now supply 25% of the world's drugs. This is causing mass famine to spread across the African continent. In addition to famines, Matthew 24:7 mentions earthquakes as a sign of the end of the age. Just like with the rise of wars, the number and intensity of earthquakes this century is also at a higher level than any other time in history. In fact, a staggering number of seismic events occur each day all over the world. Just ask the USGS, the United States Geological Society. Moving ahead to Revelation 9, verse 16, we read, "And the number of the armies of the horsemen was 200 million. I heard the number of them. China's army reached that size in the 1960s. Prior to this, there was never an army of that size in existence. And prior to the restoration of Israel in 1948, Hebrew was a dead language. But since then, the prophecy of Zephaniah 3:9 was fulfilled. It stated, 'For then I will return to the people a pure language, that they may all call upon the name of the Lord, to serve him with one consent.' Hebrew is now spoken throughout all of Israel." Next, in Revelation 11, verse 3 and 7 through 10, is mentioned the death of two prophets, and one of the key parts is that those from the peoples and tribes and tongues and nations will be able to see them, these dead prophets. Prior to the invention of our modern satellite technology and 24-hour news broadcasts, this was simply not possible. The scripture also mentions that they will lie in the streets for 3.5 days, dead, and will not be placed in a tomb. Prior to, again, our modern technology, it was impossible for a message to be delivered to the entire world in less than 3.5 days. But now we will clearly have a way to see this event from anywhere in the world, right as it happens. There are many more items listed there, such as those at containerministries.org, and there are also many books, many good teachings, such as those of Chuck Missler, a preacher I heard recently. However, this is all the time that I have for today. I exhort you, friends, to research this information on your own more thoroughly, if I have even remotely whet your appetite. Thank you again for your time, and I look forward to watching your videos when I return from my mission trip to Nicaragua. Take care.